Tonight you drift away into the cold, salt-scented breath of the North Sea. The year is somewhere in the middle of the 10th century, but dates mean nothing here. What matters is the wind on your cheeks, the sound of creaking timbers beneath you, and the slow, steady groan of a hull that has known more storms than calm waters. You lie curled on damp furs, the wool scratching at your neck, the smell of fish oil, sweat and tar pressing in like an unwelcome embrace. Somewhere above, ropes slap against the mast in a rhythm that might have been music if you weren't so tired. The stars are hidden tonight. Only the moon paints a pale ribbon across the black water, guiding you to a place that will welcome you with suspicion, or with silver. The sea rocks you into a trance. You think of the market stalls ahead, the noise, the heat, the sharp laughter of strangers, and you wonder if your voice will be heard there at all. You've traded everything before, from amber beads to salted herring, but tonight it feels like the only thing you have left to offer is yourself. And so, the tide carries you on. Sleep now. You wake to the slow roll of the deck beneath you, the wood shifting as if it's breathing. It is not a gentle place to wake. The boards are hard, their edges pressing into your ribs, and every time the ship tilts, the ache in your hip deepens. The thin layer of furs beneath you is more for show than comfort, scavenged from trades gone stale, stiff with salt and years of sea air. They smell of other men, of dead animals, of winters long past. It is cold again. Just like yesterday, just like the day before. The sea has a way of stealing the warmth out of you before you've even begun to move. Your breath leaves in small white clouds, drifting toward the shadowed rafters above. Somewhere in the dark, you can hear the quiet shuffle of the others, traders like you, some still half asleep, some pretending to be. Men whose dreams are always interrupted by the sound of water slapping against the hull, by the snap of ropes, by the groan of the mast. The air is thick with smells that have no exit. Salt and tar, fish and sweat, damp wool and rotting wood. The kind of smell that clings to your skin so tightly that even when you step onto land again, the wind in your hair will still taste like it. You get used to it in the way that you get used to hunger, or the ache in your back. Not because it stops, but because you learn there is nowhere else to go. Your place is at the far side of the hold, wedged between a stack of crates and a barrel that leaks brine in slow, dark beads. You keep your bag under your head, not for softness, but to keep hands from it. The bag holds your worth. A scattering of silver coins, 2 carved combs made from walrus ivory, a strip of amber beads the colour of trapped sunlight, all small enough to be stolen in the dark. Above, the deck creaks. The men on watch pace slowly, their boots thudding against the boards. You can hear one of them cough, a wet, rattling sound that says he will not see another winter if he stays at sea. Someone shifts nearby, and you feel the furs tug slightly as the weight of another body moves closer. Space is scarce here, and warmth is borrowed. When you first began trading, you thought the worst nights would be at sea. The cramped hold, the endless damp, the way the ship feels like it's breathing beneath you. But you learned quickly that the nights in strange harbours could be worse. Sleeping on land means sleeping among strangers who know you have goods worth taking. Sleeping on land means noise, fighting, and the wrong kind of attention from the wrong kind of people. Here, at least, the only thing that can take you is the sea. You close your eyes again, not to sleep, but to slow the morning from arriving too quickly. The cold fur scratches at your cheek. You try to remember the last time you slept in a bed. A real bed, not just a plank with fabric on it. Years, maybe. Beds belong to people who stay in one place, and people who stay in one place do not see what you have seen. The ship sways again, a long, slow motion that pushes your stomach toward your throat. You ride it out, letting your breathing match the rhythm, in and out, as the sea carries you along. The rocking has its own voice, the slap of water against the side, the creak of rope, the low moan of the timbers. Some nights, if you are lucky, it feels almost like a lullaby. Most nights, it feels like being reminded that the sea has more patience than you ever will. You think of the men who sleep beside you. One, an older trader with hands like knotted rope, mutters in his dreams. Another snores with a sound like waves breaking against stone. You do not know their names in full. Traders pass in and out of your life like weather. You share food, you share space, you share warmth, and then you do not see them again. Sometimes you remember their faces. Sometimes you remember their deaths. Your feet are cold again. You pull the furs tighter, tucking them under your knees. The ship groans as if it too wants to be somewhere else. You imagine the harbour ahead, the wooden piers, the smell of cooking fires, the sound of gulls. You imagine the bed you will not have, the food you cannot yet afford to waste. You imagine the faces of the people you will meet, weighing the worth of your goods with eyes that do not care for you. But that is later. For now, you lie in the cold belly of the ship, feeling the breath of the sea move through the boards, feeling your bones hum with the motion. There is nothing soft here, and nothing kind, and yet this is where you belong, in the quiet between storms, in the shadowed space between sleep and waking, in the hold of a ship that remembers more voyages than you have years. You shift your weight, careful not to wake the man beside you. Your hand rests on the bag beneath your head. The coins inside are cold. You think of the miles they have travelled, the hands they have passed through, the lives they have bought and ended. In the dark, they feel heavier than they should. The cold presses in again. Just like yesterday, just like the day before, you breathe through it, let it fill your chest until you can almost believe it is strength instead of hunger. Somewhere above, a gull cries. To land, then close enough to smell the faint trace of wood smoke in the air, close enough to think of stepping off this ship, if only for a while, but the harbour will wait. The world will wait. You close your eyes and let the sound of the sea carry you a little further. Sleep now, just for a moment. You wake again, not because you've slept well, but because the cold has decided it is time. The furs have slipped from your shoulders, and now the sea air bites at the thin wool of your tunic like a patient set of teeth. You pull it close, but wool is only loyal when it is dry, and yours hasn't been truly dry since the last time you were on land. You dress in layers because the sea makes mockery of single garments. Closest to your skin is a rough linen shirt, pale once, though now the colour of rainwater that has passed through mud. It scratches where the salt has stiffened the fibres, and in the folds under your arms it holds the sour scent of days without washing. Over this is your wool tunic, brown, heavy and patched in places where the sea or work or knives have torn it. You can see the repairs even in the dark, each stitch a reminder that cloth costs more than dignity. Your trousers are the same wool, coarser still, the kind spun for work rather than comfort. They cling to your legs when wet, and they are almost always wet. Once in a storm they were so heavy with water you thought they might drag you overboard. But they are warm enough when the wind is merciful, and the wind is merciful just often enough for you to forgive it. Around your waist is a leather belt, worn thin in places from years of buckling and unbuckling, from the weight of a knife, a pouch, and sometimes a small hammer. The belt creaks when you move, a dry whisper under the heavier groans of the ship. It is the only part of your clothing that feels personal, not because it is fine, but because it has carried the tools and coins that have kept you alive. Your shoes, if they can still be called that, are low leather boots, dark with age and salt, the seams mended more times than you can count. The left boot has a split near the toe that lets in water as soon as you step in it. You stuff bits of wool inside to keep it from freezing your toes, but the wool moves, and your toes are cold anyway. You have seen other traders with new boots, bought from craftsmen in ports far richer than the ones you frequent, but those boots wear out just as quickly, and they are stolen just as often. When the weather is kind, and it is kind less than you would like, you leave your cloak folded in your bag, but today the air smells like the edge of winter, and the sea mist drifts over the deck in soft, damp fingers. So you pull the cloak from where it has been sleeping under your head, shake it free of whatever insects have decided it was theirs, and throw it over your shoulders. It is heavy. The kind of heavy that feels like safety when the wind rises. Thick, dark wool, clasped at the neck with a simple bone pin carved into the shape of a fish. You found the pin in a market years ago, traded for it with a man who swore it would keep you safe at sea. You don't believe in charms, but you have never sailed without it. Your clothes are not fine. No one would mistake you for a chieftain or a man of silver, but they are yours. And in a life where even your berth on the ship can be taken by a man with more coin that matters, every patch on your tunic is a memory of nights on deck sewing by moonlight, of sitting near a fire in some strange harbour, of trading a carved comb for a scrap of cloth, because the wind had torn a hole big enough to see your skin. The sea has its own way of shaping what you wear. Salt eats at the stitching. Sun fades the colours until everything is the shade of old rope. Rain drives into the seams and never truly leaves. Your cloak smells of fires you didn't light and forests you haven't seen in years. Your boots carry the mud of places you will never visit again. Even your belt, leather cracked and darkened, bears the marks of years, faint indentations where the knife hilt pressed, scratches from coins, the ghost of a stain from a fish you gutted in haste. And yet, when you walk through a market, people will see you before they see your goods. They will read your clothes the way you read the clouds, searching for signs, for warnings, for truths you did not mean to tell. A frayed cloak says you have travelled far but not richly. Stained boots say you have worked harder than you have bargained. A well-mended tunic says you know how to make things last, which can mean you are clever, or that you have had no choice. The wind picks up again, sliding cold fingers under your cloak, down your back. You pull the fabric tighter, listening to the faint snap of the sail above, the quiet complaint of the ropes. Somewhere a trader laughs, a short, sharp sound, as if he has remembered something worth smiling at. You think of land again, of how, when you step into the market, the air will be full of other smells, meat roasting, bread baking, the sharp tang of tanned hides. You will stand there, dressed in the sea and the months it has taken from you, and you will offer what you have. People will look at you and decide whether your goods are worth the silver, whether your face is worth trusting, whether your cloak hides something more valuable than you are letting them see. Your clothes are not armour, not truly, but they are the only thing between you and the wind, between you and the eyes of strangers, between you and the cold that waits in every shadow. You adjust the clasp of your cloak, run your fingers over the bone fish pin. The sea rocks the ship, and your boots slide slightly on the damp boards. You wonder how many more harbours these clothes will see before they finally fall apart in your hands. The wind is colder now, just like yesterday, just like the day before. You breathe it in, let it settle into the wool, into the leather, into the skin beneath. You are dressed for the day, or at least for whatever the day will decide to be. And maybe now you can rest a little longer before it begins. Morning on the sea does not arrive all at once. It seeps in, slow and grey, as if the light itself is reluctant to join you. You do not wake to birdsong. There are no birds this far from shore, but to the deep, steady groan of the ship's timbers and the slap of water against the hull. Some mornings there is no sound at all but the low hiss of wind against the sail, and you could almost believe the world beyond the deck has vanished entirely. You keep your eyes closed at first, not in the hope of more sleep. Sleep, real sleep, is a luxury reserved for people on land, but to postpone the first shiver of the day. The cold always arrives before your thoughts do. It curls into the space between your neck and your cloak, bites at your toes through the wool inside your boots. You know without looking that your breath will rise in small white clouds. You feel the dampness in the air cling to your skin, making the linen of your shirt heavy before you've even moved. The first part of the ritual is not standing. It is bracing. You flex your fingers inside the sleeves of your tunic, working the stiffness from them. Your joints complain in their quiet, stubborn way. a reminder of years bent over crates and steering oars, of nights curled against barrels that shift in the dark. Somewhere nearby you hear another man groan, the kind of sound made when the body is already tired before the day has even begun. When you finally open your eyes, the hold is dim. Light creeps in from above, not through windows, there are none, but through the uneven seams of the deck, thin pale lines that sway with the movement of the ship. Dust drifts in the beams, stirred by the slow shifting of the other traders, men pulling themselves upright, muttering to themselves in voices too low to catch. There is no chatter in the mornings. Words are heavy before food. You push yourself up, your palm pressing into the familiar grain of the deck. The wood is cool and slightly damp beneath your hand. Above, the boards creak with the weight of footsteps. Men already on duty, adjusting sails, checking ropes. You imagine their faces, pale in the grey light, eyes narrowed against the wind. Your second act of the day is to check your bag. Always, even before you think of food or water, you slide it closer, feeling the weight through the leather, the coins still there, the ivory combs, the amber beads. It is not much, not enough to make you rich, but it is enough to keep you alive until the next harbour. You tug the strap tight and loop it around your belt. You have known men to lose everything between waking and breakfast. The third part of the ritual is the same on sea or land, water, not to drink. That will come later, but to splash your face, to tell your body that the night has ended. On land you might find a stream or a bucket. At sea it means going up to the deck, cupping the icy salt water in your hands and feeling it bite your skin. You climb the ladder slowly, your boots slipping once on a damp rung, and then the wind greets you. It is sharper up here, unbroken by walls. The sea stretches in all directions, steel grey under the pale wash of dawn. The horizon is blurred as if the world is not entirely decided on whether it wants to exist today. You bend to the side of the ship, dipping your hands into the water below. The cold is immediate, biting, alive. You splash it over your face, and the salt stings your lips, your eyes. It does not wake you so much as remind you that you are still here. You stand there for a moment, letting the wind comb through your hair, letting the motion of the deck sway your body in a rhythm older than memory. You look toward the bow, where one of the crew is adjusting the rigging, his cloak snapping in the wind like an angry flag. He doesn't glance at you. No one does, not at this hour. The mornings belong to the ship itself. The creak of wood, the whisper of rope, the endless breathing of the sea. The fourth part of the ritual is simple, and yet it feels heavier than it should. Food, or what passes for it. On a good morning you might find dried fish that hasn't gone too hard to chew, or bread that hasn't collected a layer of mould. On a bad morning, and most are bad, it is nothing but a swallow of yesterday's ale, flat and sour, but enough to keep the hunger from gnawing too loudly for a little while. Today it is a small strip of smoked herring, tough as leather but rich with salt. You chew slowly, letting the brine flood your mouth, letting it remind you of every market stall you've ever passed that smelled like this. You eat alone, even with others nearby. Meals are not for talking. Meals are for thinking about the next one. The fifth part, the last part, is waiting. Morning is a tide of its own, and it comes in whether you are ready or not. Some days you wait for orders from the ship's master to help shift cargo or tie down barrels. Some days you wait for the fog to lift before sighting land. Today the sea seems undecided, the wind shifting just enough to keep the sail from sleeping. You sit on a coil of rope, cloak wrapped tight around you, and watch the horizon for the first sign of smoke, of gulls, of roofs. You think, as you always do, about how the mornings were different when you were young, before the sea had taught you that the day is only a series of small discomforts separated by moments of trade, before you learn that the cold in the morning will always be there even in summer, before you realise that rituals are not about comfort, they are about control. The ship creaks again, just like yesterday, just like the day before. You let the rhythm settle into your bones, slow and steady, until your breathing matches it. The morning is here now, and the day will do what it wants with you. Rest for a moment more, while you can. You have been putting it off since the first roll of the deck woke you, but there is only so long a man can ignore the pull of his own body. The sea has no respect for your dignity, and neither does the ship. Out here, there is no chamber, no private corner, no carved bench hidden behind a curtain. There is only the open air, the rail, and the waves waiting to carry your shame away. You try to time it. Everyone does. You wait for a moment when fewer eyes are on you, when the deck is busy with sails or knots or the quiet rhythm of nothing happening. But privacy is an idea for houses, not for ships. Even if no one is watching directly, someone will hear the shift of your boots on the boards, the creak of the railing, the pause that tells them exactly what you are doing. The cold wind makes the decision no easier. It snakes down the neck of your tunic as you make your way to the side, carrying with it the sharp sting of salt spray. Your hands grip the wood, smooth from years of touch, but damp, always damp, and you lean just enough to see the grey-green water writhing below. The ship rocks, a slow, steady motion, but you know from bitter experience that the sea waits until you are at your most vulnerable before lurching. You glance around once, a reflex. One of the crew is coiling rope a few steps away, pretending to look elsewhere but very aware of your presence. You don't blame him. Life on board is a tapestry woven from the smallest humiliations. The act itself is quick, though never quick enough. The wind bites places it has no right to reach, and the spray from below drifts up in fine, invisible flecks that find your skin. Sometimes, when the sea is wild, you have to brace your knees against the side to keep from tipping forward, heart pounding with the knowledge that one wrong move could have you joining the cargo in the belly of the ocean. At least today, the waves are calm enough to take what you give them without a fight. You finish, shift your weight back, and fasten your belt again, the leather stiff with salt, the buckle cold against your fingers. You step away, forcing yourself not to hurry. Moving too quickly only draws more eyes. When the weather is bitter, as it so often is, there are worse trials. Frost can form along the railing in the dead of winter, the wood biting at your hands until they ache. In the far north, the wind is so sharp it can take your breath before you've even begun, leaving you gasping like a fish as the ship groans beneath you. There are men who have learned to hold themselves for hours, even a whole day, just to avoid that kind of cold. But holding too long comes with its own price, and you've seen the bent-over walk of those who waited too long. On land, things are no kinder. Harbours have their places, crude pits behind markets, alleys dark enough to pretend they're private, but they are worse in their own way. There, the filth lingers, and so do the people, drunks, thieves, children with quick hands who see you distracted and think of your coin. At least on the ship, the sea takes everything away. On land it stays, clinging to the air, to the ground, to the soles of your boots. Back near the mast, a trader laughs at something one of the crew has said. You imagine it's about you, though you know it's not. That's the thing about life on the water. You carry the constant uneasy weight of being seen, even when no one is looking. You return to your place near the coil of rope, where you often sit, pulling your cloak tighter, willing the wind to dry the damp from your hands. The smell of the sea is everywhere now, but then, it always is. It clings to your skin, your clothes, the fur lining of your boots. It will cling even when you step onto dry land again. You think of the strange truth in it all, that on the sea, even this act feels smaller, almost swallowed by the vastness around you. The horizon doesn't care. The gulls don't care. The water takes it and moves on, just as it will take the ship's bilge, the scraps of old meals, the blood from a deck fight, the ashes of a burned offering. You sit back down. The cold has not left you, but it is a familiar companion now, slipping back into the folds of your cloak like it belongs there. The day stretches ahead, long and grey, but you have already completed one of the sea's necessary miseries. and maybe now you can rest your eyes for a moment before the next. It is never called breakfast aloud. No one gathers around a table, no one offers you a plate, no one says the word. On the ship, it is simply the first thing you eat after deciding the night has ended, and some mornings it hardly deserves to be called eating at all. The smell tells you before the sight does, a mixture of salt, smoke, and the faint sourness of grain stored too long. Somewhere one of the crew has fetched the morning's portion from a barrel, and now the air carries the sharp tang of dried fish. You do not rush to it. You have learned there is no difference between the first man to eat and the last. The taste will not improve, and the portion will not grow. When it is your turn, you are handed a strip of herring, stiff as if it has been carved from driftwood, and a piece of bread that feels more stone than loaf. The bread is coarse, flecked with whatever grain could be spared, its surface uneven from baking over an open fire long before the ship left port. You weigh both in your hands, not for value but for stubbornness. How much chewing it will take, how much effort before it gives in. There is no butter, no honey, no soft thing to ease it down. There is only the ale, ladled into a cup that smells faintly of the tar it was sealed with. The ale is flat, bitter, and carries a faint sourness from the barrel, but it is wet, and wet is enough. You take your place near the mast, cloak wrapped around you, and bite into the fish first. It resists. Your teeth pull at it, your jaw working slow and steady, and the salt blooms across your tongue. It burns faintly where it touches your lips, the kind of burn that reminds you of winter winds. You chew until the fibres loosen, until it becomes something you can swallow without forcing. The bread is worse. The crust is hard enough to knock against the deck without breaking. You turn it over in your hands, searching for the side that will yield first, as if it matters. Your first bite feels like biting a piece of the ship itself, dry, heavy, determined to stay whole. You wash it down with ale almost immediately, feeling the liquid soak into it in your mouth before it will agree to move. Around you, the others eat in the same silence. The only sounds are the creak of the ship, the muffled clink of cups, the quiet grind of teeth against bread. No one complains. Complaining does nothing but waste air. And besides, you have all eaten worse. Meat gone sour but not yet deadly, porridge made with water that tasted faintly of bilge, biscuits crawling with small, pale insects that were easier to eat than pick out. Sometimes, when the wind is fair and the ship is making good time, the morning meal is better. A bit of fresh bread from the last port, a piece of smoked meat, once on a rare and fortunate day, a small wedge of cheese, sharp enough to make your jaw ache, gone in 2 bites. But those are the kind of mornings you remember for years, because they are rare enough to seem almost imagined. You finish the fish first, the last bite softer than the first, though no more pleasant. You work through the bread slowly, using the ale to force it down. When it's gone, you sit for a moment with the empty cup in your hands, letting the last traces of salt and grain settle on your tongue. Your stomach is not full, but it is quiet for now, and that is enough. The cold creeps back in as soon as you stop eating. It always does. Food is warmth for a few minutes. Nothing more. You pull the cloak tighter and watch the pale light shift across the deck as the morning stretches onward. Somewhere above, a gull cries. Faint, distant. Land is not far now. You can almost smell it beneath the layers of salt and wood smoke that live in the air. Breakfast is not about pleasure here. It is about surviving until the next one. And you've survived another morning. Rest a while. The day is only beginning. It begins before anyone tells you it has begun. A shift in the way the crew moves. The faint but certain edge of urgency in the footsteps overhead. The voices, low and steady, calling for rope, for hands, for weight to be shifted. You have done this long enough to know the work is not announced. It arrives, and you either move with it or risk being in the way. You pull yourself up from your coil of rope, fingers brushing the salt grip that lives in every groove of the wood. The wind is stronger now, sharper, carrying with it the smell of something that is not just sea. Faint traces of smoke, maybe pine, maybe the breath of the land ahead. But before you can think of land, there is the work. On days like this, it is mostly the moving of goods. Barrels of salted fish, sacks of grain, bundles wrapped in oilskin to keep the damp from seeping in. The ship is a living thing, but she is also stubborn, and the way she rides the water depends on balance. Too much weight in one place, and she will list, groaning in protest with every wave. So you carry, you lift, you shift. The barrels are heavy enough to strain your shoulders, the salt crusting along their seams, scratching against your arms as you roll them. Your boot slips slightly on the damp boards, and you catch yourself on a rope, feeling the coarse fibres bite into your palm. The air tastes of iron, not from blood, though there has been that before, but from the damp mingling with the ship's nails, the slow rust that never sleeps. You work in the rhythm the sea gives you. Lift when the deck dips, push when it rises, always moving with the sway instead of against it. The men who fight the motion tire quickly, the ones who work with it last until the job is done. You learned that lesson in your first month at sea, when you tried to plant your feet and found yourself sprawled against a barrel, ribs aching, breath gone. Sometimes the work is on deck, tying down what might shift in a sudden gust, checking the lines for fraying, replacing the ones that have given up. Rope work is the kind that leaves your hands raw, the salt from the fibres cutting small lines into your skin. You spit into your palms when they start to ache. It does nothing for the pain, but it makes you feel as though you've done something about it. Other times the work is simply waiting, but waiting with readiness, standing at the side as the ship eases toward harbour, ready to throw the line, ready to catch it again if the dock hands miss. Waiting is work here, though no one calls it that. It is the work of keeping still, of letting the hours pass without fidgeting, of watching the horizon for signs the others have missed. When the ship reaches port, the work shifts again. Now it is unloading, the same barrels and sacks you rolled and stacked days ago. Your back protests, but there is no space for weakness in front of dock hands who will judge you not just by your goods, but by how you carry them. On a good day, you unload onto the dry planks of a pier. On a bad one, into the ankle-deep mud beside it, your boots sucking at the earth with every step. Then comes the market. This is the work that leaves no calluses, but it tires you just as deeply. You spread your goods on whatever space you are given. A patch of wood, a table if you are lucky, sometimes only the back of a cart. You arrange the amber beads so the light catches them, set the ivory combs where curious hands can reach but not pocket them. Lay out the fish so their silver skins look fresh even if they have sailed with you for weeks. Selling is a different kind of labour. It is keeping your voice steady, even when the customer frowns at your price. It is watching their eyes, their hands, the way they glance toward your bag. It is pretending you have more than you do, because hunger smells weakness as easily as dogs smell meat. Some days, the haggling feels like a battle fought without weapons. You offer, they refuse, they counter. You pretend to consider. You trade not just goods for silver, but hours for food, safety for shelter, the chance to leave before trouble starts for the risk of earning more if you stay. Every sale is a small gamble. And then, when the coins are in your hand, there is still the work of keeping them. Markets are crowded, and hands are quick. You keep your pouch closed, fingers brushing the leather often, as though touching it will keep the silver inside. When the day ends, the work does not. Back to the ship, loading whatever you have taken in trade, sacks of grain, rolls of cloth, sometimes goods so strange you cannot name them. Always, the weight is the same in your arms, and always it feels heavier at the end of the day. Your muscles ache by the time you sink back to your place in the hold. You smell of smoke and fish and sweat of the market, stalls, and the sea that brought you to them. You stretch your back against the boards, feeling the day settle into your bones like damp into cloth. Tomorrow will be the same, just like yesterday, just like the day before, and maybe for now you can rest. It changes with every shore, yet somehow it always feels the same. You step onto the docks with the weight of the sea still in your boots, and the eyes find you before your feet are even steady. Some are curious, some are calculating, and some look at you the way one might look at an unfamiliar dog, a mix of wariness and the unspoken question of whether you might bite. On the ship, you are simply another set of hands, another back to bear the load, another pair of eyes to watch the horizon. But on land, you are marked by everything you carry, not just the goods in your bag, but the smell of tar and salt in your cloak, the way the wool hangs heavy from days of damp, the faint sway of your stance as though the ground beneath you still moves. The market knows you before you open your mouth. In some ports, they greet you with loud voices and wide gestures, hands clapping your shoulders as if you were an old friend. But the warmth is measured, and it often lasts only as long as your goods do. Once your amber and ivory are gone, so is the brightness in their eyes. Others treat you like a shadow moving between stalls, speaking only when they must, giving you the kind of look that says they've already decided what you're worth. And it isn't much. The children are the boldest. They dart in close, eyes wide, their laughter sharp as gull cries. Some come to see what you've brought, drawn to the strange shine of beads or the carved patterns in combs. Others come for your coin, or your knife, or whatever you've been foolish enough to leave in reach. You keep your pouch closed and your face unreadable. The traders who live on land regard you with a particular blend of disdain and necessity. They need what you bring: fish from distant waters, cloth woven far from their looms, the little luxuries that make them feel their own lives stretch farther than the edges of their town. But they do not forget that you will be gone soon, that you will sail away with their silver, leaving them to wait for another like you. Some envy the movement, others despise it. You can see it in the way they press their lips when you smile. There are places where your face alone earns suspicion, ports where sailors have left behind more trouble than trade, where a man with sea in his eyes is assumed to be carrying lies as well as goods. In those places the law watches you more closely. You feel their gaze while you haggle, their presence heavy as a hand on your shoulder, ready to decide you've stolen something before the day is done. And then there are the rare moments, so rare you count them like coins in a near-empty pouch. When someone sees you without weighing you, a woman selling bread will slip you an extra crust without raising the price. A man mending nets will nod as you pass, the kind of nod that says he knows what it is to live by the mercy of wind and weather. These gestures are small, but they settle somewhere deep, lasting longer than the market noise or the taste of that day's food. At sea, the treatment shifts again. Among the crew and other traders, respect is measured in quiet ways, whether your knots hold, whether your share of the load is carried without complaint, whether you speak when you should and keep silent when it is wiser. Men at sea remember quickly and forgive slowly. One moment of weakness can take months to fade from their eyes. One act of strength can keep you safe in a storm. The captain treats you like cargo with a voice. You are part of the ship's balance, useful but replaceable. If you work well, he will speak to you in words that are not commands. If you work poorly, he will speak to you as if the sea itself has already claimed you, and he is only waiting for your body to follow. There is no fairness in it, only patterns. You are respected until you are not. You are welcomed until you are not. You are safe until you are not. And yet, you grow used to it, the way one grows used to a cloak that itches but keeps out the rain. You learn the shapes of the stairs and the silences. You learn when to step forward and when to fade into the background. You learn that kindness, when it comes, must be taken without question, because asking why will only make it vanish. The truth is that most will forget you the moment your sail disappears from their horizon. Your name will not remain in their mouths. Your face will not linger in their thoughts. And perhaps that is a kind of freedom, or perhaps it is just another way of being invisible, just like yesterday, just like the day before. Rest now. Tomorrow there will be more eyes to meet. The sea does not care for your health. It is a place where wounds do not heal quickly, where fevers linger, and where the smell of sickness clings to the boards long after the man has gone over the side. You've seen it too many times. The pale faces, the hollow eyes, the quiet coughing that starts soft and ends in silence. Cleanliness is an idea for people who live near fresh water. Here, water is for drinking when you must, and for cooking when you can. The rest, the washing, the scrubbing, is done in haste if at all, and often only when the stink becomes too heavy even for the sea breeze to carry away. You have gone weeks without washing your whole body. Everyone has. There are moments when you can rinse your hands in the salt water, splash it over your face, run it through your hair, but salt cleans nothing. It only leaves a crust on your skin, pulling at it until it itches. Your tunic grows stiff with it, your hair rough and tangled. After a while, the smell becomes part of you, and you stop noticing until you reach land, and the first whiff of smoke or baking bread tells you exactly what you've been living in. Disease travels quickly here. A cough from one man in the morning becomes 3 by nightfall. Fever passes through the ship like wind through a torn sail, invisible until you feel it, unstoppable once it comes. There are no doctors, no healers, just whatever herbs or charms a man carries, and whatever prayers he believes might reach a God willing to listen. Sometimes the sick are given space. Sometimes, when the space is needed, they are given the sea. Wounds fare no better. A splinter from a rough board can swell and redden in days, turning the skin hot and tight. A cut from a knife, even a small one, can fester. The smell of rot rising before the pain becomes unbearable. You've seen fingers lost to rope burns, feet ruined by boots that stayed wet too long. Infection is quiet at first, patient, waiting until you think you've healed before it reminds you otherwise. On land, there are moments to feel human again. A public bathhouse, if you can afford it. Steam rising, water warm enough to soften the salt from your skin. The brief illusion of being clean. But those places carry their own sickness. 100 bodies soaking in the same heat, the air heavy with breath and damp. You leave feeling softer, yes, but also aware of every cough you heard, every pale face you passed. Most days, you keep clean in the smallest ways you can. You wipe your hands on a scrap of cloth before eating. You pick at the dirt beneath your nails with the tip of your knife. You rinse your mouth with water when you can spare it, feeling the grit of old bread and fish loosen from your teeth. It is not much, but it is something. And still, the body finds ways to remind you it is only borrowed. Your gums bleed when you chew the wrong bread. Your skin cracks at the knuckles when the wind stays cold too long. Some mornings your eyes are rimmed red from the salt that dries there in the night. There is no escaping it. You live in damp, in salt, in close quarters with men who carry their sickness as easily as they carry their knives. You share the same air, the same ropes, the same bowls. If one of you is unwell, all of you are. You have learned not to think too much about it. The sea will decide when it wants to take you, and it may be by sickness just as easily as by storm. Until then, you carry on, smelling of salt and sweat and whatever the day has given you. Just like yesterday, just like the day before. Rest now. The sea has not taken you yet. There is no single law at sea. The rules shift with the shoreline, bending to the will of whichever chieftain, king, or council claims the water you happen to be sailing through. On one coast, a man might be free to trade whatever he carries. On the next, that same cargo could be seized as contraband, the trader fined, beaten, or worse. You learn early not to think of law as something fixed. It is a wind, changing without warning, and often in your face. On the ship, the law is simpler, but no kinder. The captain's word is the rule, and his temper is the measure of your guilt. A man who disobeys an order may be lashed, not always hard enough to scar, but enough to remind him that the ship moves on discipline as much as on wind. The lash is often a rope's end, wet with seawater so it bites deeper. The punishment is carried out in silence. The guilty man does not beg, and the crew does not watch too closely. Everyone pretends it is not them next time. For theft, the price is higher. On land, a thief might lose a hand, or a finger, or pay in silver if he has it. At sea, with no courts to slow the judgment, it can be swifter, a beating, or being set ashore in the nearest unfriendly harbour with nothing but what you can carry. You've seen men thrown overboard for stealing, though the official word was always accident. In the markets, the law takes different forms. There are guards with spears, sometimes swords, their armour dented and patched, but still enough to make you think twice before speaking too loud. They watch the traders, weighing each movement, each deal, ready to step in when coin changes hands too quickly. You've seen their punishments too. Public whippings, stocks in the square, heavy stones tied to ankles and lowered slowly into the water until the guilty man gasps out a confession. Sometimes the law is no more than the will of the strongest man in sight. A wealthy merchant whose word is worth more than any guard's. A gang of dockhands whose friendship with the wrong chieftain means they can take what they want. In those moments you do not argue. You let the silver go. You let the insult pass. Pride is not worth the trouble it buys. There is no fairness in any of it. The poor pay in blood, the rich pay in silver, and the ones who write the laws rarely pay at all, but you learn how to walk between the edges of it, keeping your goods and your skin as intact as you can. You keep your voice low, your eyes open, your temper buried deep. You nod when you must. You disappear when it's wiser. And yet, the threat of punishment shapes everything. Every bargain you strike, every step you take through a harbour, carries the weight of it. You can feel it in the way you keep one hand on your pouch, in the way you glance toward the ship even before you're ready to leave. At sea, the crew laughs sometimes, small, quiet laughter, at the idea of law on land. Out here, the law is the water itself. It will take you without question, without trial, without mercy. A man who cannot keep his footing, who cannot hold his rope, who cannot keep his place, the sea passes judgment faster than any chieftain. And so you keep to your path, not because you believe in the laws, but because you know the cost of being caught in them. Just like yesterday, just like the day before. Rest now. The sea does not ask for your guilt, only your balance. Faith is not a thing you carry in your hands out here. It is something you wear in the back of your mind, like a hood you can pull up when the wind shifts. Some men keep the old gods close. Odin for wisdom, Thor for storms, Frasier for safe passage home, their names spoken under the breath in moments when the sea turns black and the waves rise like walls. Others hold to the newer Christ, with his promise of one God and one life, though his prayers feel thin on the water, like a rope too short to reach the shore. You have never chosen fully between them. At sea, you take what safety you can from whichever name feels stronger in the moment. A whispered plea to Njord when the sail tears in a sudden squall. A quiet sign of the cross when the wind dies and the ship sits motionless for days. No one laughs at this. The sea teaches all men the same truth. Belief is not about loyalty, it is about survival. Your cloak clasp is carved in the shape of a fish, bone polished smooth from years of fingers passing over it. The man who traded it to you swore it kept him safe in a storm that should have killed him. You have never tested it, and you hope you never do, but you wear it every time you sail. Some of the crew have similar charms. A ring, a scrap of fur tied to the mast, a coin kept in the mouth during a gale. There are rules too, rules no one writes down, but everyone follows. Never whistle on deck. It calls the wind, and the wind is rarely gentle when called. Never kill a gull, they are said to carry the souls of sailors, and to strike one is to bring the sea's anger upon you. Never speak of drowning at night. The water listens, and it has a long memory. When the fog comes in thick and low, some men mutter about Drag, the restless dead who pull ships beneath the waves. Others speak of the Kraken, though no one admits to believing in it. But the way they glance at the water, the way they pause when something large moves beneath the surface, tells a different story. On land, the superstitions change, but they are no less sharp. In the markets, some traders scatter salt across their goods to ward off thieves. Others burn a sliver of wood from a holy place before opening their stalls. In certain towns, you've been told not to touch the first coin you earn until the day's trading is over, or the silver will vanish as quickly as it came. You carry these things with you, whether you believe them or not. At sea, a man's certainty can crack like ice underfoot, and in that moment you will grab hold of whatever you can, a god's name, a charm, a rule you never questioned until now. You've seen men survive storms with nothing but a rope and their own strength. You've seen others vanish on calm water with the sun on their backs. Belief is not a guarantee, but it is something to hold, and on the sea, something to hold can mean everything. And so you keep the fish clasp, you speak the names when you must, you follow the rules you can't explain, just like yesterday, just like the day before. Rest now, the gods, whichever ones are listening, have let you see another morning. Dinner is not a feast. It is not the glowing hall of a chieftain with roasted meat turning on spits and horns of mead overflowing. It is simply the second time in the day you put something in your mouth and hope it will keep you upright until morning. By the time the sun begins to sag toward the horizon, the cold has seeped deeper into your bones. The air grows heavier, carrying the wet smell of the sea and the faint tang of smoke from the galley fire. If there is a galley fire today, some evenings the sea is too rough to risk cooking. On those nights, dinner is only whatever you have left from the morning, another strip of salted fish, another piece of bread, both harder now than they were hours ago. But when the fire is lit, there is a thin comfort in it. A pot balanced over the flames, the steam curling upward, carrying the smell of barley or dried peas softened in water that was boiled just long enough to feel safe. Sometimes there is a scrap of meat in it, shreds floating like driftwood in a pale broth. Sometimes only vegetables, boiled down until they are more memory than substance. You sit with your bowl in your hands, the heat working its way into your fingers even before the food does. You blow across the surface, watching the steam drift away into the dimming light. The first mouthful is always the best, not because of taste, but because the warmth spreads quickly, uncoiling something inside your chest that has been clenched against the day. The men around you eat quietly. Words are unnecessary now. The creak of the ship, the sigh of the wind, the occasional splash against the hull fill the space where conversation might be. The only other sound is the scrape of spoons against wood. If the sea is kind, dinner may be shared with a little ale, passed in a cup from hand to hand. You take your sip slowly, letting the bitterness linger on your tongue, letting it remind you that not everything at sea tastes of salt and smoke. In some harbours, when you are lucky enough to be ashore at day's end, dinner is better. Bread still warm from the oven, meat roasted over coals, fish pulled from the water that very morning. But those meals are rare enough to live in memory for years. Most nights, it is the ship, the pot, and the same familiar broth. When your bowl is empty, you scrape the last soft grains from the bottom, unwilling to waste even the smallest bite. Hunger at sea is patient, and it knows you well. You wipe the bowl with a scrap of bread, chew slowly, and swallow the last mouthful as the light fades into the deep blue of evening. The warmth stays for a little while, just long enough to carry you into the night. Soon the cold will return, the damp will press in, and the darkness will take its place on the deck. But for now you feel the food settling in your stomach, heavy in a way that almost feels like comfort. Just like yesterday, just like the day before. Rest now. The night will be here soon enough. You do not choose your dreams at sea. They come as they wish, pulled from places you've been, places you've only heard of, and places that could never exist outside the mind. Some are gentle, some are cruel, and most slip away before you've even opened your eyes. When you do remember them, they are rarely of the sea itself. You see the land, green fields, tall forests, streets that smell of bread and smoke instead of salt and tar. You see tables covered in food, more than you could eat in a week, and your hands are clean, the dirt and fish oil gone. You sit there and eat without counting each bite, without thinking of how long it must last. Other nights you dream of faces. Some you know, though they are not always as you remember them. A friend you traded with years ago, alive again and laughing in a market that no longer exists. A woman you once saw across a harbour, her hair dark with rain, now standing on a shore that glows with a light you cannot name. Sometimes the faces belong to the dead, men you sailed with, men you buried in the sea. They speak to you as though no time has passed, their voices calm, their hands warm. And then there are the darker dreams, the ship creaking under a sky that has no stars, the water black as tar, rising higher, the deck tilting beneath your feet, the sound of ropes snapping like bones breaking. You reach for the rail, but it is gone, and the cold takes you without warning. You wake from those dreams with your heart hammering and the taste of salt thick in your mouth, your hands gripping the furs as though they could keep you from falling. Sometimes the dreams are stranger still. You walk through a market where all the stalls are empty, yet the air hums with voices you cannot see. You sail a sea of glass, the water still, the ship gliding forward without wind or oars. You see the moon hanging low enough to touch, its surface rough beneath your fingers, and when you look back down, the sea is gone, and you are walking across a plain of white sand. There are nights when you dream of nothing at all, and those are the ones you wake from feeling most rested. No storms, no faces, no hunger, just the deep black of forgetting. But those nights are rare. More often you carry the weight of your dreams into the day, their images clinging like the smell of smoke in your cloak. Some of the crew speak of dreams as omens. A gull in a dream means land is near. A wave breaking over the deck means a storm to come. A dream of drowning means the gods are angry, though no one can say which one or why. You don't always believe these things, but when the dream is bad enough, you find yourself looking at the horizon with a little more caution the next morning. And when the dream is good, when it shows you warmth or laughter or food that never runs out, you carry it like a charm, letting it soften the edges of the day until the sea takes it from you. Just like yesterday, just like the day before. Rest now. The night still has a little more to give. You already know the answer. Though the list is long enough to fill every day you have left, death does not hide itself at sea. It moves in plain sight, in the creak of the mast, in the cold that sits in your bones, in the cough that doesn't go away. The sea is the first and most patient threat. She waits without rushing. A sudden storm, the kind that rises from a clear horizon, can split a mast, tear a sail, and swallow a man before his own cry has left his mouth. The waves can come from nowhere, lifting the ship high enough for you to see the next one waiting like a black wall, before dropping you into a trough so deep the light disappears. But the sea doesn't always need storms. A misstep on a wet deck, a hand missing the rope in the dark, and the water closes over you silently. No one dives after you. They watch the ripples fade and know there was nothing else to do. Sickness is slower, but it claims more lives than storms. A fever that rises in the night and refuses to break. A wound that festers until it smells of rot. Teeth that ache until they loosen, and then the bleeding that will not stop. You've watched men waste away over weeks, their skin thinning, their eyes dulling, until they are carried to the side and given to the sea. Hunger waits too, though it hides itself well in the beginning. At first, it is just smaller meals. The bread cut thinner, the fish shared between more hands. Then comes the weakness in the knees, the heaviness in the arms, the way your thoughts slow until even lifting a cup feels like work. The sea does not forgive weakness for long. On land, the dangers change but never vanish. A wrong word to the wrong man can end in a knife between your ribs before you've finished your sentence. Drunken brawls in market taverns, theft gone badly, guards with more authority than patience, all can put you in the dirt by morning. Then there is the cold, not the chill of a breeze, but the kind that seeps in deep and does not leave, even by a fire. You can feel it in your fingers, in your toes, in the hollow of your chest. It slows you until your body decides there is no point in fighting anymore. The next time you close your eyes, you do not open them again. And yet, the most dangerous thing might be trust. Trusting the sea to stay calm. Trusting a man to keep his bargain. Trusting your own luck to hold out one more time. The truth is, every step you take, every coin you trade, every harbour you enter, all of it could be the one that ends you. You do not dwell on it, not because you are fearless, but because fear takes energy you cannot spare. You keep moving, keep working, keep watching the horizon. If death wants you, it will find you whether you look for it or not. Just like yesterday. Just like the day before. Rest now. You've survived another day, and that is enough for tonight. There are whole worlds that will never touch you, though you have spent your life moving from shore to shore. You have seen the sea in every mood, the sky in every colour, but there are places your feet will never stand, things your hands will never hold, faces you will never know. You will never see the great halls of kings except from the outside, their carved doors shut against men like you. You will never walk their polished floors or eat from their heavy silver plates or drink from their jewelled cups. If you trade with them at all, it will be through someone else's hands, your goods carried in and your coin carried out without you ever crossing the threshold. You will never see the deep forests that lie far from the coasts you haunt. You hear stories from hunters and woodcutters, trees so tall their tops vanish into clouds, deer that vanish between the trunks without a sound. But the markets you know are always set where the land meets the water. The forest belongs to others. You will never see the desert, though the cloth from its edges sometimes passes through your hands. Traders speak of sand that stretches beyond sight, heat that shimmers in the air, cities of stone that rise from nothing like mirages. You will imagine it perhaps when the deck burns hot under your bare feet in summer, but you will never feel that heat under an open sky. You will never see the far south, where they say the sun lies heavy and the nights are short, where fruit grows in colours you cannot name. You will never see the far north, where ice drifts like floating islands, and the sun hides for months at a time. You will never see your own face grow old in a mirror of polished silver. There are no mirrors on the ship, only the brief, warped reflections in water, and the sea shows you only what it wants you to see. You catch glimpses in market windows in the shine of a bronze plate, but they are gone before you can decide whether you recognise the man looking back. You will never see the coins you spend return to you. Once they leave your hand, they vanish into other trades, other lives, other hands you will never touch. You will never know what they bought, or who ate because of them, or whether they were stolen before the day ended. There are people you will never see again, though you still picture them when the nights are long. A woman who smiled at you in a market stall, a boy who carried your goods for a single coin, a friend you buried in the sea, and still expect to find on deck sometimes. And there are things you will never see simply because the sea will not allow it. Weddings, births, summers spent in one place long enough for the fruit trees to flower and bear fruit again. Fields turning from green to gold to white with snow. You live in a world without seasons, only days of wind and days without. You tell yourself it does not matter, that what you have seen is enough, that the places you'll never reach are only stories, and stories are lighter to carry than memories. But sometimes when the sea is calm and the night is quiet, you feel the weight of it all, the unseen, the untouched, the unremembered. Just like yesterday, just like the day before. Rest now, the waves will take you where they choose, and that will be enough. It will not be much. Traders are not remembered in stone, no sagas are sung for men who spent their lives carrying barrels from one shore to another. You will leave behind no hall, no sword with a name, no great pile of silver for others to fight over. If you die at sea, what you leave behind will sink with you. The coins in your pouch, the combs you meant to sell, the clasp from your cloak. The water will take them all, scattering them into the dark until they are no more yours than they are anyone's. The ship will go on without you, your place in the hold claimed by another man before the next tide turns. If you die on land, you may have a grave, though likely not one with a marker, a patch of dirt somewhere behind the market, a stone at your head if someone has the time to find one. The wind will wear it smooth in a few years. The earth will take the rest. Perhaps a few will remember you for a while. A man you traded with, a woman you drank with in a harbour tavern, a crewman who once shared your cloak during a cold watch. They will remember a face, a voice, a laugh. Then they will forget, or they will die, and you will be gone entirely. Maybe you will leave behind something that lasts, not because it carries your name, but because it carries your work. A bead you traded will be worn by someone you never met. A fish you salted will be eaten by a child in a place you've never seen. A piece of cloth you brought from far away will keep someone warm on a night you will never know. These things will outlive you, but they will not remember you. They will not know whose hands carried them, whose back bent under their weight. They will simply move on, as you once did. And perhaps that is enough. The sea does not keep what it is given, but it carries it forward. Your life is the same, not kept, but carried. One day, there will be nothing left of you but the faintest trace in the stories of others, a name half remembered, a trade spoken of without knowing who made it. The world will close over you as easily as water closes over a dropped stone, just like yesterday, just like the day before. Rest now. What you leave behind will go where it is needed, whether you see it or not. The day is gone. The sea has swallowed its hours without ceremony, and the sky hangs low, pressing its weight over the water. The wind is softer now, though it still finds its way under your cloak, cold enough to remind you that the night will be no gentler than the morning was. You sit in your place in the hold. The boards warm only where your body has been all day. The smell of the ship is the same as it has always been. Salt, tar, damp wool, and the faint, sour edge of fish oil. But tonight it feels quieter, less sharp, as though even the air has grown tired. Around you the others settle in. A cough here, the rustle of furs there, the slow, steady breathing of men already lost to sleep. You stretch out on the rough furs, pulling them up to your chin. The ship moves beneath you. A slow, steady rocking that feels older than your own life. Above, the rigging sighs. The water laps against the hull. The world narrows to the sound of it, the gentle, endless rhythm that will carry you through the dark. Your mind drifts, as it always does, between thoughts and dreams. The faces you saw today blur into the faces you have seen in every harbour, until they are no longer people but shapes, voices, gestures. You think of the goods in your bag, of the coins hidden beneath your head, of the trades you will make tomorrow if the sea allows you to see another shore. The cold does not leave, but it loses its edge. Your breath slows. Your hands loosen their grip on the furs. Somewhere in the distance, the gulls cry once, and then there is only the water. No one will remember this night. No one will remember your name, but the sea remembers everything. Even if she never says it aloud. There are no wolves at the door, no blade in your side, no storm in the sails. You have survived another day. Sleep now.